Biology, Chapter 12, Video 3, Theory. We are going to discuss about ATP. Now, in our earlier session, we understood that ATP is produced as an intermediary product. So now, here the topic says ATP as energy currency. So, what do you understand by the term currency? Basically, currency is not the product. It is not what is being produced. Now, for example, if you go and buy, if you want to buy yogurt, yogurt would be produced by some person and you are going to consume it. So instead of get the yogurt, you give that person money so that person can go and buy. If that person wants to go and buy ice cream, he can pay that currency to the ice cream producer and get that. So currency is not exactly the producer or the consumer. It is simply a medium. So ATP is a medium through which energy is transported. So it is simply a intermediary product. Now in figure 6.4 page 113 you will see the structure of ATP that you will have to have a good look at it. Pause the video, have a look at it and come back to discuss further about ATP. So now I hope that you have taken a good look at the structure of ATP. That is quite important for you to know the structure of ATP because that is going to help you to understand the chemistry inside the ATP. Now, when a phosphate group is removed from ATP, adenosine triphosphate, tri means three phosphates are there. So when one is removed, you are left with ADP or adenosine diphosphate, right? And when a phosphate is being removed, a phosphate group is being removed, 30.5 kilojoules of energy per mole would be released. So that means when binding one phosphate molecule into an adenosine diphosphate ADP to convert it into ATP, you are trapping 30.5 kilojoules of energy in it. Then if you remove another phosphate from ADP, you will get adenosine monophosphate or AMP. And again 30.5 kilojoules of energy is released. However, if you remove the last phosphate just to leave adenosine, then it releases only half of that 14.2 kilojoules of energy is released. That is a little less than half. So then we have to understand when one phosphate is removed from ATP to produce ADP, 30.5 kilojoules per mole, that is the amount of energy released. Then ADP to AMP, again 30.5, but AMP to AMP, that is adenosine monophosphate to adenosine, you remove the phosphate, then only 14.2 kilojoules of energy is released, right? Now earlier they had thought that the final one is a less energy bond, but that is not actually accurate. It is not exactly by breaking bonds that you get the energy. It is actually the entire structure is getting restructured. It is getting rearranged in a different way. So that is what that potential, chemical potential energy changes when the entire system changes. So but in a basic sense you can understand that when ATP goes with reacts with water, there has to be water involved in here. So that is hydrolysis. You have to remember that hydrolysis of ATP produces ADP, then ADP undergoes hydrolysis to produce AMP, and AMP once again goes through hydrolysis to produce adenosine. So 30.5 ATP to ADP, ADP to AMP 30.5, but AMP to adenosine it is 14.2. I hope you understood that part. It's quite clear if you look at the diagram once again. These reactions are all reversible. So that means from adenosine you can go back to AMP, AMP to ADP, and ADP to ATP. Right? So this reversible, the reversible or the interconversion ability of ATP and ADP, this is very, very important to provide energy for the cells. Because if it is not that easy, then that is going to be a problem. So ATP plus H2O, ADP plus H3PO4 plus 30.5 kilojoules for energy, plus or minus. So if it is the forward reaction, then it would be released. If it is going back, then it would be absorbed in. This rate of interconversion or turnover is enormous. That is, large amounts of energy is required. So this is happening really fast inside the body. So that is about 40 kilograms. A resting human uses 40 kilograms of ATP in 24 hours. Right? 40 kilograms of ATP is being used by a person inside the, is used to provide energy. But this is, because it is reversible, that doesn't mean that you have 40 kilograms of ATP inside your body at any given time. But what it says is that this conversion altogether would add up to 40 kilograms. Then, but at any one time contains only about 5 grams of ATP. Right? So that makes sense, doesn't it? Now, if there are 40 kilograms of ATP is converted in 24 hours, but you have only about 5 grams of ATP at any given time. During strenuous exercise, ATP breakdown may be as much as 0.5 kilograms per minute. Right? So that is quite the number. It's quite high. The cell's energy yielding reactions are linked to ATP synthesis. ATP energy yielding is energy producing. The ATP is then used by the cell in all forms of work. So the ATP will be transferred throughout the cell, and wherever it is required, it can be reconverted back into ADP and energy can be taken in. So the ATP is the universal intermediary between energy yielding and energy requiring reactions. That means when you produce energy, that energy will be taken up by ATP, and ATP goes to the place where the energy is required, and for that reaction it takes part, it gives away the energy for that reaction. So in a basic sense, ATP is the energy currency of the cell. The cell trades in ATP rather than making use of a number of intermediates. It trades in. We will understand what it means. It trades in ATP rather than making use of a number of different intermediates. ATP is a highly suitable molecule for this role. Not only it is readily hydrolyzed to release energy, it is also small and water soluble. So there are many reasons why ATP is such a useful thing, useful mechanism. First one is it is hydrolyzed easily to release energy. Number 2, it is small, and number 3, it is water soluble. So if they are asking, you have to look at the number of marks that they are going to give. If they ask this question, why is ATP suitable, then if they have given 3 marks, that means it is 3 points. You have to write the 3 points here. It can be easily transported around the cell. Right? So energy transfers are inefficient. What do you mean by inefficient? That means energy is being wasted. Some energy is converted to thermal energy whenever energy is transferred. So you know that in our body, the energy that is wasted is converted into heat energy, not light energy. We don't emit light. It is heat energy. At the different stages in a multi-step reaction, such as respiration, the energy made available may not perfectly correspond with the energy needed for synthesis of ATP. So that means the energy that is produced and converted into ATP is not going to be balanced with the amount of energy that is being released, because most of the energy is getting converted into thermal energy. Many energy requiring reactions in cells use less energy than that released by hydrolysis of ATP to ADP. Right? Many energy requiring reactions use less energy than that is produced. What that means is when ATP is converted into ADP, releasing energy, we say that 30.5 kilojoules of energy is released per mole. So that particular now let's imagine that particular reaction requires some amount of energy, and the breakdown is 1 mole of ATP is broken down. So this 1 mole of ATP, when broken down, it releases 30.5. However, the reaction might use somewhere around 20.3. So that means 10.2 kilojoules of energy has been wasted or converted into thermal energy. But that is what it means. Be careful to distinguish between molecules used as energy currency and as energy storage. Right? So ATP, ADP, these are energy currencies. But how do we store energy? We store energy in the form of, now we store energy, the short term energy storage glucose or sucrose. Long term, glycogen, starch, triglycerides, these contain chemical potential energy. We have them as storage units. But when they break down, their energy is once again trapped by ATP to be transferred to different places. I hope you understood that. Let's write a note on this. ATP as energy currency. When phosphate is removed from ATP, ADP is formed, which releases 30.5 kilojoules per mole energy. And the second phosphate removal releases the same amount of energy. Second removal of phosphate releases the same amount of energy, producing AMP. And the removal of the third and the last phosphate provides only 14.2 kilojoules of energy per mole. Giving out the final product adenosine. And please draw this 12.4 diagram figure. You will understand it better. And also underneath that, write down this chemical reaction ATP plus H2O, reversible sign ADP plus H3PO4 plus 30.5 kilojoules. Then write down a very large amount of energy is required by the body. Therefore, despite having only about 5 grams of ATP at any given time, about 40 kilograms of ATP is used by a resting human during 24 hours. ATP is the universal intermediary molecule between energy yielding and energy requiring reactions. ATP is the universal intermediary molecule between energy yielding and energy requiring reactions. There are three reasons why it is such a suitable molecule. Number one, it is hydrolyzed easily to release energy. Number two, it is water soluble. Number three, it is easily transported around the cell. Number three, it is small and easily transported around the cell. So let's see whether you have written it down properly. It is easily hydrolyzed to release energy. Number two, it is small and can be transported easily. And it is water soluble, which helps in the same transportation mechanism. Those are the three things you have to write. Energy transfers, next point, energy transfers are inefficient. Not all the energy that is produced by breaking down molecules during respiration will be trapped in ATP. Not all the energy produced by breaking down molecules during respiration will be trapped by ATP, and not all the energy released by hydrolysis, not all the energy released by hydrolysis of ATP would be converted to would be rather than converted, would be utilized by energy requiring chemical reactions. Most of the energy would be used up, but some energy would be converted into thermal energy. Put a star and write down. ATP, ADP, AMP are energy currency mechanisms, energy currency mediums. However, glucose, sucrose, within brackets write short-term storage molecules, short-term, just write short-term, close brackets, and glycogen starch triglycerides, within brackets, long-term. Energy storing molecules are energy storing molecules. I hope you understood this. If you have any questions, please raise them.